Ohio stretches across 44,000 square miles of flatland, river valley, and Appalachian Ridge. Most people drive through it. They see the interstates, the rest stops, the skyline of Columbus or Cleveland, and they keep going. What they miss is underneath, and behind, and deep in the woods where the roads stop making sense. Because Ohio is hiding things? A cave beneath a winery that is not actually a cave. A stone tower sealed with concrete after a bolt of lightning killed a teenager inside it. A ghost town the federal government created by accident when it bought every house and then forgot to tear them down. A road near Cleveland where your car rolls uphill and no one has ever attached a ghost story to it because the phenomenon itself is strange enough. And then there is number one on this list. A 1,348-foot-long earthen serpent built on top of a meteor crater aligned with the solstices by a culture that vanished and left no explanation behind. Make sure you stick with us until we get to that story, because after nearly 200 years of investigation, the fundamental questions still have no answer. If you have not subscribed yet, hit that button now. We cover the strange, forgotten, and unexplained corners of the world every week, and this is the kind of thing we live for. Today we are counting down 10 mysterious places in Ohio no one has been able to explain. Let's go! Number 10. Crystal Cave. The world's largest geode hiding beneath a winery. On South Bass Island in Lake Erie, there is a winery. Heinemann's, founded in 1887, fifth generation, Ohio's oldest family-owned operation. 40 feet beneath its tasting room, workers digging a well in 1897 broke through the ground and fell into something they were not looking for. A hollow cavity in the limestone, 35 feet wide and 10 feet high, its walls covered in pale blue celestine crystals ranging from 8 inches to 3 feet across. Geologists estimate the formation is 12,000 to 15,000 years old. It is officially recognized as the world's largest known geode. The key detail is this. You are not walking through a cave. You are standing inside a single rock. Every crystal-covered surface around you is the interior wall of one enormous hollow stone. The crystals were originally mined and sold to fireworks manufacturers. Then Prohibition hit, and every winery on the island folded except Heinemann's, which survived on cave tours and grape juice. The thing that almost got stripped for parts ended up saving the business. Still open. Still sparkling. You just have to take a ferry to get there. Number 9. Gravity Hill. The road where your car rolls uphill. Put your car in neutral near the intersection of Little Mountain Road and King Memorial Road in Kirtland Hills, northeast of Cleveland. What appears to be the bottom of a hill is where you stop. Then your car begins to roll. Upward. Or at least, that is what every part of your brain insists is happening. A 2003 study from the universities of Padua and Pavia confirmed what scientists already suspected. It is an optical illusion. Dense tree cover blocks the true horizon in every direction, and without that reference point, your brain defaults to the nearest visual cues, which happen to lie. The road slopes gently downhill. Your eyes say otherwise. Hundreds of gravity hills exist worldwide, but this one made it onto the TV show that's incredible and has drawn visitors from across the state for decades. There are no markers, no signs, no admission fee. No ghost story either, which is unusual for this kind of place in Ohio. Just a road that lies to you. And it is very good at it. Number 8. The Hollow Earth Monument. The grave of the man who tried to prove the planet is a donut. In Hamilton, Ohio, in a public park between 3rd and 4th Streets, there is a children's playground. In the middle of that playground, inside a protective steel cage, stands a stone monument topped with a hollow globe. A hole punches clean through its center. This is the grave of Captain John Cleves Sims, Jr. War of 1812 veteran. Hero of the battles of Lundy's Lane and Fort Erie. And the man who, in 1818, announced to the world that the earth was hollow and habitable within, accessible through 1,400-mile-wide openings at both poles. He was not laughed out of the room. He filled lecture halls, he petitioned Congress. Congress voted on it. The administration of President John Quincy Adams nearly approved the expedition, But Adams lost his re-election in 1828 and Andrew Jackson killed the idea. One of Sims's followers actually sailed to Antarctica looking for the entrance, found nothing. Sims died in 1829 at 49, exhausted from lecturing. His son erected the monument in 1873. And here is the detail that stops people cold. When the old Pioneer Cemetery was converted into a park in 1848, every body was dug up and moved to a new location. Everybody except Sims. The city was afraid that if they moved him, his family would reclaim the land. So they built a playground around a single grave. Children swing and climb 30 feet from the remains of a man who believed the earth was a hollow shell. The globe on top has been stolen once, shot at and hit with baseball bats. It is still there. Number 7. The Witch's Tower. The sealed tower that killed with lightning. On May 17, 1967, two teenagers from Bellbrook drove a convertible to a stone tower in what is now Hills and Dales Metropark near Dayton. Ronnie Stevens was teaching 16-year-old Peggy Ann Harmison to drive. It was her second or third time behind the wheel. A storm moved in fast. They ran inside the tower for shelter. The tower had no roof. Lightning struck directly. Peggy was found dead on the 11th step, half her body covered in severe burns. Ronnie survived but was incoherent and had to be restrained by ambulance crews. A former classmate who served as a pallbearer at her funeral was also 16 years old. The tower itself was built in 1940 by the National Youth Administration using stone salvaged from condemned buildings around Dayton. It stood 56 feet high with walls over 3 feet thick and 50 spiraling steps to a lookout platform. For 26 years, it was just a scenic overlook. After the lightning strike, urban legends swallowed it whole. The tower was Civil War era. Witches met there. Multiple people had died inside. Ghostly silhouettes were burned into the walls and could not be scrubbed away. None of that is true. One girl died. That was enough. The entrance is now sealed with concrete. Ghost hunters still show up with electromagnetic field meters, trying to talk to Peggy at the base of a tower she cannot leave. Number 6. Wisner Road and the Melon Heads of Kirtland. The Children in the Woods. Wisner Road winds through dense hardwood forest in Kirtland, a quiet Cleveland suburb in Lake County. It is the kind of road where the canopy closes overhead and the moonlight does not reach the pavement. For over 50 years, people have reported seeing pale, child-sized figures with grotesquely enlarged heads moving between the trees. The legend centers on a figure called Dr. Crow, a name that shifts spelling depending on who tells it. In one version, he was a compassionate caretaker of orphans with hydrocephalus. In another, he was a monster who injected fluid into children's brains. Both versions end the same way. The children killed him. They burned his house. They disappeared into the woods. Research indicates Dr. Crow almost certainly never existed, but the legend has been documented in Weird, Ohio, featured on Cleveland's 3 News, collected as oral history by the Lake County Historical Society, and adapted into 2 feature films. The most recent, The Melon Heads, House of Crow, premiered to a sold-out audience in 2024. The education manager at the Lake County Historical Society put it simply: whether it is true or not, the retelling has become the history. There is nothing to see on Wisner Road. No landmark, no plaque, no ruin. Just the road and the trees. And the fact that generations of Northeast Ohio teenagers keep driving it after dark, which tells you everything about how a legend survives. If you are finding this interesting, hit that thumbs up. And if you have ever driven a back road in Ohio that felt wrong for reasons you could not explain, tell us about it in the comments. We read every one, and your stories help us find new places to investigate. We are only halfway through this list, and the entries from here on get significantly heavier. Number 5. Moonville Tunnel. The ghost town where even the railroad stopped believing. In 1981, the B&O Railroad installed a signal light at an abandoned stretch of track in Vinton County, Ohio. The instructions to engineers were specific. Obey the signal. Ignore any swinging lanterns you see on the tracks. That is not a metaphor. Train after train had been slamming into emergency braking mode because engineers kept seeing a lantern swinging in the darkness ahead, signaling them to stop. When they stopped, no one was there. A real railroad company engineered around a ghost. Moonville was a coal mining community that grew up along the Marietta and Cincinnati Railroad in the mid-1850s. Two families, the Coes and the Fergusons, made up most of the town. At its peak in the 1870s, roughly 100 people lived there. There were no roads through the rugged Appalachian terrain, so residents walked the tracks to reach neighboring towns. The single-track line, the trestles, the tunnel, and the constant foot traffic created a lethal combination. Local historian Jeanette Quackenbush has documented at least 21 deaths along the tracks through newspaper records. The coal ran out. The mines closed in the early 1900s. The last family left in 1947. By the 1960s, every building was gone. The legends attached to 4 ghosts by name. The engineer, Theodore Lawhead, killed in a head-on collision in the 1880s. The brakeman, a drunk who stumbled into the path of a locomotive. The lavender lady, an elderly woman struck on the tracks. And the bully, Baldy Keaton, found dead near the rails after being thrown out of a saloon. Today the tunnel stands alone in the forest, a brick arch in a hillside with the word Moonville still visible in the stones above the entrance. The tracks are gone, pulled up in 1988. The rail bed is now a hiking trail. A Halloween festival called Midnight at Moonville draws visitors to the tunnel every year. A town dies. The tunnel stays. And the lantern, apparently, keeps swinging. Number 4. Franklin Castle, Ohio's most haunted house, and the bones in the wall. You drive through a residential neighborhood of modest homes in Cleveland's Ohio City, and then a building appears that does not belong. Dark stone, turrets, gargoyles, arched windows behind a wrought iron fence. It dwarfs everything around it. Franklin Castle was built between 1881 and 1883 by Hannes Tiedemann, a German immigrant banker. Tiedemann and his wife Louise endured the deaths of 4 of their children, including 15-year-old Emma, who died of diabetes in 1891. His mother also died in the house. Tiedemann responded to the grief by expanding the building, adding turrets, gargoyles, and a network of secret hallways and tunnels. The reason for the hidden passages has never been established. When Louise died in 1895 at 57, Tiedemann sold the house within a year. It became a German cultural club for nearly 5 decades. Then, in 1968, the club left and the stories started. Babies crying, doors slamming. A woman in black staring from the tower window. In the mid-1970s, owner Sam Muscatello claimed to have found human bones behind a wall panel while searching for secret passages. The leading theory is that he planted them to draw tourists. That has never been proven. In 1974, a previous family had called in a priest. He performed an exorcism and told them to leave. They did. The house was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1982. Judy Garland's 5th husband bought it in 1984 and spent close to $1 million restoring it. He gave up in 1994. A Yahoo early employee bought it in 1999 for $350,000. A fire gutted it that same year. Bought, abandoned, burned, renovated, abandoned, allegedly used for filming adult content, and now an upscale overnight stay. You can book the room where the priest performed the exorcism. 14 decades and the house still has not run out of owners willing to try, or stories willing to push them out. Number 3. Helltown, the town the government emptied overnight. Boston Village was first settled in 1806. It was the oldest village in Summit County. The Ohio and Erie Canal brought prosperity in the 1820s. A railroad station called Boston Mills followed. For 168 years, it was a functioning community. In 1974, President Gerald Ford signed legislation granting the National Park Service the power to buy land via eminent domain. Boston Township was earmarked for the Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area. Residents had no choice. The government bought their homes and told them to leave. One of them wrote on a wall before departing, "Now we know how the Indians felt." Then something went wrong. The NPS bought homes faster than it could tear them down. The abandoned village sat for decades. Boarded windows. No trespassing signs on every door. An empty school bus rusting in the woods. A Presbyterian church with upside-down crosses, which are actually common in Gothic church architecture but looked satanic to anyone who did not know that. A road locals called the end of the world, abandoned because a steep drop and a sharp curve made it genuinely dangerous. Legends filled the vacuum. The church was a cult meeting place. The bus held the ghosts of children killed by a serial killer. A toxic chemical spill at a nearby dump had mutated a snake into a giant predator. Rangers did find chemicals at the crazy dump in 1985. They got rashes. No one mutated. The nearby village of Peninsula still celebrates Peninsula Python Day in honor of the legendary snake, based on a 1944 farmer's report of an 18-foot serpent in his cornfield. In 2016, the government finally demolished the remaining structures. Boston Cemetery still stands. A few buildings remain on private property. The Cuyahoga Valley Historical Museum in Peninsula has the exhibits. A town erased by legislation, haunted by policy, and named by the stories that grew in the silence the government left behind. Number 2. The Ridges. The woman who left her mark on the floor forever. The Athens Lunatic Asylum opened on January 9, 1874, designed to hold 572 patients. At its peak, it held over 1,000. It was built according to the Kirkbride Plan, an architectural philosophy that believed natural light, ventilation, and humane spaces could heal the mentally ill. The building covered 700,000 square feet. On December 1, 1978, a 53-year-old patient named Margaret Schilling failed to appear for dinner. A search was initiated. Staff combed the building. They did not find her. 42 days later, on January 12, 1979, a maintenance worker opened a door in abandoned Ward N20, a top-floor unit once used for patients with infectious diseases. Margaret Schilling was on the floor, dead, naked, her clothes folded neatly beside her. Her official cause of death was heart failure, likely from prolonged exposure to cold. The phenomenon is called paradoxical undressing. People in the final stages of hypothermia often strip their clothes off, convinced they are overheating. They are not. When they moved her body, an outline remained, the shape of a woman, permanently embedded in the concrete floor. Every attempt to clean it has failed. A 2008 forensic study published in the Journal of Forensic Science concluded the stain was caused by adipocere, the chemical transformation of body fat into a soap-like substance that seeped into the concrete's pores. Sunlight through the window accelerated the process. The asylum closed in 1993. The property was transferred to Ohio University, which renamed it The Ridges. Some buildings house classrooms and the Kennedy Museum of Art. Others remain abandoned. 3 cemeteries on the grounds hold former patients, many marked only with numbers. The stain is still there. Access to the room is controlled. You can see it on guided tours. It is not a ghost. It is chemistry. And that is what makes it worse. The explanation does not make the image easier to carry. It makes it permanent. Number 1. The Great Serpent Mound. The snake on the meteor crater that nobody can explain. You drive south from Hillsborough into Adams County, and the landscape changes beneath you. The rolling farmland gives way to something rougher. The hills get steeper. The valleys narrow. The Appalachian Plateau begins to assert itself. You follow the signs to a grassy ridge above Brush Creek, and you step out into wind and silence and the feeling that the ground here is different. It is. From the observation tower, you see it. A raised ribbon of grass, about 3 feet high and 22 to 24 feet wide, curving across the plateau in great undulating coils. A tail that spirals into a triple loop at one end. A head at the other, its mouth open, engulfing an oval shape roughly 120 feet long. It stretches 1,348 feet, a quarter mile. The largest serpent effigy in the world. It was first documented by Ephraim Squire and Edwin Hamilton Davis in 1848 in a survey commissioned by the Smithsonian Institution. It was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1966. In 2008, the U.S. Department of the Interior placed it on the tentative list for UNESCO World Heritage Site consideration. And after nearly 200 years of investigation, the three most basic questions remain open. Who built it? When they built it? Why they built it? The dating is contested. Radiocarbon testing in 1996 produced dates around 1070 CE, suggesting the fort ancient culture. A 2014 study pushed the date back to approximately 300 BCE, suggesting the Adena culture. Archaeologist Brad Lepper has challenged that finding on methodological grounds. The gap between those two dates is nearly 1,400 years. The mound sits on the rim of the Serpent Mound impact crater, an 8.7-mile wide scar left by a meteorite strike 252 to 330 million years ago. The surface evidence of the impact was erased by erosion long before any human walked this continent. But the geology beneath remained shattered and uplifted, creating a landscape visibly different from everything around it. Some researchers believe the builders chose this specific location because the ground itself felt strange. The serpent's head aligns with the summer solstice sunset. 3 eastern curves align with equinox sunrises. The coiled tail aligns with the winter solstice. It is a calendar written in earth. It contains no burials, no artifacts, no human remains. It is not a tomb. It is not a fort. It is purely symbolic. A quarter-mile of shaped clay and ash, reinforced with rock and soil, carrying a meaning that the people who made it took with them when they disappeared. In 1900, 3 women from Adams County pooled their money to buy the site and prevent its destruction. It became one of the first preserved archaeological sites in America. It has since been attacked by New Age vandals who believe it is an intergalactic portal, a serpent a quarter-mile long, built on a meteor crater, aligned with the stars, by people who left nothing behind but the serpent itself. Ohio has hundreds of ancient earthworks, but this is the one that resists every attempt at a final answer. It does not give you facts, it gives you the question. And the question is older than the English language, older than Rome, and still open. Ohio does not advertise its strangeness. It buries it 40 feet underground, seals it in concrete, or leaves it sitting on a ridge in Adams County where most people will never drive. But the strangeness is there, 10 layers of it at minimum. For me, it is the Moonville Signal, a real railroad company issuing real instructions to ignore the ghosts. That detail is going to stay with me for a while. Which one caught you off guard? Which one did we miss? Let us know in the comments, and if these kinds of deep dives into forgotten and unexplained places are what you are looking for, subscribe. We do this every week, and there's always more to find.